Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Ralf Specht, who's the author of Building Corporate Soul. Ralf, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, I am interested in hearing about your book because the title sounds excellent. And I know you're the developer of the Soul system. So you've got a whole methodology built around this. But before we dive into that, give us a little bit of your background and your entrepreneurial journey up to this point in your career.
Yes. So I've spent a lot of my time, more than 30 years actually, in advertising and marketing. I've spent 22 years with McCann Erickson in various executive roles in global marketing support for great brands and Nestle and you name it. And back in 2011, I was asked to join a group of founders to found a unique joint venture agency model, which was called Spark 44. It was a joint venture with Jaguar and Land Rover. And we started from scratch with 4 offices in LA, Frankfurt, London, and Shanghai. And when I stepped down as CEO in 2019, I left the company with 1,200 people and 18 offices in just 8 years. So quite a journey, actually. And when I stepped down, I received lots of emails, messages, texts, and what have you. And basically, beyond what you would expect farewell message that you would get, the majority of these messages went much, much deeper. And people thanked me for what I helped them in accomplishing things that they have never thought they would be able to do. And so the logic of the legacy to me was not necessarily the size and the growth and the number of people and the number of locations, but actually the quality of the corporate culture that we had been able to achieve. And after a few weeks contemplating about it, I thought, this requires a book, and that's how Building Corporate Soul actually came about.
Excellent. I always love hearing when you have, you probably during your tenure in these companies, you just had your head down building and growing, and you weren't thinking of one day, maybe I will start a system called the Soul System. One day I might write a book. But when you look back on it, now it's like, okay, well, what is the common thread of success through your corporate journey? And then that's what comes out. So it kind of makes me think of when you hear corporate soul, kind of like, corporate culture. That's a buzzword. And I think that it may be overused. So what is the difference between corporate culture and corporate soul?
Well, actually, I don't think it's overused. I think it is not used enough.
Or not understood.
Yeah. And so every company has got its culture, right? You can't have a company without culture. The question is, what kind of culture and how conscious are you about building that culture?
Yeah.
So the way I would put it is every company has its culture, only few got corporate soul. And what I mean by that is when you lead a company, you as the CEO or managing director or president or whatever the function is, and your leadership team have to start thinking about what kind of culture do you want the place to have. Obviously, when you start from scratch, it's a bit easier because you can basically define it before it actually happens. But that's a very rare case. Usually, leaders get into a company and find something, and then they have to review that and come to grips with whether this is what they want. In my soul system, I call this element spirit, which is alongside vision, mission, values, the fourth element in what I call the shared understanding. And spirit, to me, is actually the ideal culture, is the theoretical idea of what a culture should be in order to then inform the shared behaviors inside a company that actually make the culture. So The shared behaviors, to me, is the third level. The shared understanding with vision, mission, values, and spirit is the second level. But it all starts with purpose. And for me, I call purpose shared purpose.
Yeah, and shared purpose would be, everyone coming together to either agree on or even build that purpose. And the worst thing in the world is to have the purpose, the vision, the mission, all of those things. High five. We finished this 3-month process of creating our corporate vision and culture and mission, and then it just sits there, nothing there. So you have to have that shared aspect where it's vibrant and being used. When you were explaining that, it made me think about, do you think that some companies who have great culture really have great soul, and they just don't know that they've, kind of transcended past culture into having a corporate soul? And then maybe when you show them some of these, aspects, they're going, we really have surpassed culture and moved into the realm of soul.
Well, I mean, the term soul in this sense is not so overused. So, let's see whether people really think about whether our company's got soul. I mean, I can tell you one thing. I received an email the other day from a CEO who read about the book and dropped me a note and saying, listen, I mean, the company that we built here is so great. We have got corporate soul. And my response to him was, congratulations. I'm glad to hear that. That's good news. But actually, I would rather see that statement come from the employees of your place, because the only people that can really evaluate whether a place has got soul are the stakeholders. It's not management. Management has the task to create an environment where corporate culture can get to a place where corporate soul emerges. And to me, it emerges when there's an integrity between what I call the shared behaviors, the shared understanding, and the shared purpose. Right? And shared purpose, as you mentioned, is about everybody buying in, but I think it's got two sides to it, right? So one is the entire leadership team buying into that purpose statement, but then it's also about sharing that purpose with all stakeholders so that they know. The receptionist needs to understand the meaning behind the words behind her on the wall that sound so great, look so great, but very often don't mean enough.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that that shared aspect, we come back to that again, that shared aspect, you have to have buy-in. And once you do have that buy-in from all parties, all team members and all divisions, talk a little bit about how that builds momentum to have success in that organization.
Well, so, I mean, in my language, I'm talking about corporate soul. There's lots of studies, lots of surveys, and lots of statistics around about corporate cultures. And there's one that I like a lot because I think there's a lot of insight in there, which is the OC Tenor Global Culture Index. And what I call corporate soul, they call a thriving culture. And their statistics across the world suggest that companies with a thriving culture are 13 times more likely to have highly engaged employees. So 13 have an 8 times higher incidence of great work and a double likelihood to have increased revenues. Now that sounds great, but there's also 2 other elements that are just as important, because employees in thriving cultures are experiencing 3 times less burnout situations, and the companies are 3 times less likely to face layoffs. Right? I mean, very often this discussion about corporate culture is a bit like, we have to do our business and then we talk about culture. And that's just the wrong way around, because corporate culture, a strong corporate culture, is actually a key enabler to success, as these numbers suggest.
Well, and also when you have that happier employee or team member, they then produce more, whatever that they're doing, which then makes them happier at their job, which then makes the company do better, which then makes them stay at their job longer. And then the HR department is not having to, receive letters of resignation and find a new employee and then go through that whole process. So it really has a domino effect on many aspects of the company, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, there's been so much talk over the last 6, 8, 9, 10 months about the Great Resignation, which Satya Nadella and Ryan Roslansky from Microsoft and LinkedIn renamed as the Great Reshuffle, which I think is the better term. And when you look at a study from McKinsey that came out last October, they looked at reasons why employees are leaving companies, and in the same study, what employers think the reasons were. And this couldn't be more black and white, right? I mean, employees, the three top reasons why employees are leaving is because they don't feel a sense of belonging, and because they don't feel valued by their organization and or by their manager. And when you look at what the employers think, they're like, okay, there was a job somewhere else where there was more money, or there was a promotion opportunity, or there was a health problem. Now, this is really black and white. These are the two bookends of the spectrum of why employees are leaving. And you can see it. I mean, a sense of belonging comes from understanding why the company is here in the first place, why I as an employee am here as well. What are we about? Where are we going, and how do we want to get there? Is what employees want to know. And companies that really are clear about this have the best results in employee engagement, employee satisfaction, and CEO approval. And my favorite example is LinkedIn. They're so clear about it. Their purpose is to facilitate professional networking. Their vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And their mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Now, you listen to these three, and you're clear about what this company is all about. And their values are a wonderful combination of outward focus and inward focus. So they got 7 values. It's members first, it's relationships matter, it's be open, it's be honest and constructive, it's demand excellence, take intelligent risks, and the 7th one is act like an owner. So you get the focus. This is a customer-centric organization that is all about empowerment for their employees. And you see, and you get into LinkedIn, and that's what you see, and that's what you experience. And so it really matters to get the basics right, the theory in terms of the shared purpose and the shared understanding, and then align all the behaviors when it comes to hiring, promoting, partnering with other companies, or your interactions with your prospects and customers. Make sure it all ties back to that shared purpose, and success is going to be yours.
You know, when you were describing that, you had a list of all the shared purpose and understanding behaviors and all of these bullet points. I can envision bullet points in this list, right? Well, it's almost like having a plate spinning on a stick, and you've got 5 and 10 and 7, and you've got to tap, tap, tap and keep them up there. So how do leaders recognize which ones are most important so they reinforce the ones that really move the needle while not letting the other ones fall off?
Well, it's difficult to say which ones are more important, because I think they're all important.
Yes.
And I mean, you know this, and many of the listeners will know this. In any business situation, you never have a situation where everything is perfect at any one moment in time. There's always something cooking here or there that you have to address. So I think the real critical elements are focusing on the employee experience.
Yeah.
So it's all about the hiring. Who do you hire? How do you hire? Who's involved? Who do you promote internally? Because if you identify people that I call soul drivers, so people inside the organization that embody the soul. In Germany, where I'm coming from, that we've got a saying that in English basically says, he or she is the soul of the company. And we all know these people in places that are kind of the role model for it. And you've got to make sure as a leader you recognize them, and no matter in which function and which position and which rank they are. And then you also have to deal with how you actually manage the collaboration. You have to ideally code events. You find situations. I mean, we had a great thing, and I only quote two examples of what we did. And both were initiatives from leaders around the world. One was from William Gravel in LA. He founded he put a week of inspiration in place, and he called it Sparkapalooza. And everybody outside the US was like, "What do you mean by this Palooza thing?" And but once everybody got through it, they knew about it, and it traveled around the world. A week of inspiration, pro bono work, guest speakers, and a bit of party and fun, and all great. And the other was an initiative that our colleagues Gonzalo from Madrid and Leticia from Sao Paulo actually developed, and we called it Spark B&B, which was basically an exchange program of two people just swapping jobs between two offices for a month or two, and experiencing a different culture and increasing the level of collaboration. And once that became public inside the company, you can guess how many volunteers there were who wanted to go to Sydney or New York or what have you. But what's important about these initiatives is you just don't treat them just as an initiative, a project that somehow happens somewhere. You treat them as an opportunity to code, to name, to label an experience that is true to your culture and that actually gets into the minds of your employees so that they can refer to it and say, well, I want to do that as well. It's not always about lots of money and lots of costs involved, because what these things do is they raise the level of commitment. And to me, commitment is the one free resource that every leader has in his repertoire if he manages his teams correctly. And we're all talking about they walk the extra mile, and they do, because that's what commitment creates.
Excellent. Well, Ralf, it's been a real pleasure having you on today. Your book is wonderful, and I think it breathes new life into the corporate culture mantra that so many of us have heard about for so many years. So I'm excited for people to get that in their hands. What's the best way that they can reach out and learn more about the book and pick up a copy?
Well, there's my website, which is buildingcorporatesoul.com. There's a section in which you can basically opt in for a newsletter. And when you do that, you get a free chapter. And obviously the book's now available also as an audio book and as a Kindle version everywhere where you can buy great books. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm really looking forward to listen and learn from people who want to join my vision to making soulless companies a thing of the past.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Mike, it's been my pleasure.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.